Millionaire saw a beggar boy enter his mansion. But when he saw his face, Robert Mitchell was having another ordinary day in his life as a successful businessman when something completely unexpected happened. The man who had built an empire from scratch and lived isolated in his Beverly Hills mansion in New York could never have imagined that afternoon would change his life forever. It was when he saw the boy running through the main gate, drenched by the torrential rain pouring over the city. Robert's first reaction was irritation. How had this child in tattered clothes gotten past security? But when his eyes met the boy's face, his legs trembled, and he had to lean against the marble wall of the entrance hall. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" Robert asked, trying to steady his shaky voice. The boy, who couldn't have been more than 12, looked at him with wide, frightened eyes. His dark hair was plastered to his forehead from the rain, and his worn brown clothes dripped water onto the mansion's gleaming floor. "I'm sorry, sir. I was just running from the rain. The gate was open and—" The boy's voice was weak, barely a whisper. Robert couldn't tear his eyes away from the child's face. It was like looking at himself at that age. The features, the shape of his eyes, even the way the boy bit his lower lip when nervous. It was all eerily familiar. "What's your name?" Robert asked, stepping closer slowly. "Nathan, sir. Nathan Parker." At that moment, Mrs. Jenkins, the housekeeper who had worked there for over 20 years, appeared in the hall carrying clean towels. When she saw the soaked boy, she immediately went to him. "Good heavens, child. You'll catch pneumonia like this." "Come here," the gray-haired woman said, wrapping Nathan in one of the soft towels. "Jenkins, wait," Robert interrupted. "First, I need to understand what's happening here." And Nathan reached into the back pocket of his wet pants and pulled out a small crumpled photo protected by a plastic sleeve. "I'm looking for someone, sir. My grandmother gave me this photo before she passed. She said one day I'd find this person and they'd help me." Robert took the photo with trembling hands. It was an old black and white image of a young woman holding a baby. On the back, there was a date, 1985, and a name written in pencil. "To my son Robert, with all my love, Grace." The world seemed to stop around Robert. Grace was his mother's name, who had passed when he was just 15, but that baby in the photo wasn't him. "Where did you get this?" Robert asked, his voice now lower and controlled. "It was my grandmother's. She always said I had an uncle somewhere in New York, an important man who could help me if I ever needed it." Mrs. Jenkins, who had been silent until then, stepped closer to look at the photo. When her eyes landed on the image, she let out a small, muffled gasp. "Mr. Robert, this woman, I knew her." "What do you mean, Jenkins?" "Your mother, Mrs. Grace, used to come here when you were a child. She always spoke of a daughter she had to leave behind before you were born. She said one day the two parts of the family would meet again." Robert felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. A sister? His mother had never mentioned this to him. All these years, he believed he was an only child. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing, Nathan looked confused from one adult to the other, trying to understand the tension that had settled in the room. His clothes were still dripping, forming a small puddle on the marble floor, but no one seemed to mind. "My grandmother's name was Mary Parker," said Nathan, breaking the silence. "She worked her whole life as a housekeeper. She always told me she had a brother who was adopted by a wealthy family when he was little, and that he became a very important man." "Adopted?" Robert repeated the word as if he didn't understand it. "Sir, excuse me," Mrs. Jenkins intervened gently. "Perhaps we should talk in the living room. The boy is wet and shivering from the cold." Robert nodded, still in shock. They made their way to the main living room, where a lit fireplace provided welcoming warmth. The walls were decorated with expensive paintings and shelves filled with books, but at that moment, none of it mattered to Robert. Nathan sat on the edge of the leather sofa, clearly uncomfortable with the luxury surrounding him. His small, calloused hands contrasted with the delicate furniture. "Tell me more about your grandmother," Robert asked, sitting in a nearby armchair. "She raised my mother alone. My mother's name was Emily, but she passed when I was 5. After that, Grandma Mary took care of me, She always said our family had been separated by difficult circumstances, but that love is never lost. "And where is your grandmother now?" asked Mrs. Jenkins, offering the boy a cup of hot chocolate. Nathan lowered his head, and Robert could see tears forming in his eyes. "She passed 3 months ago. She was very sick and—" The boy's voice faltered. "Before she left, she gave me this photo and told me to look for the man in the story. She said he would live in a big house in a nice part of town." Robert felt a tightness in his chest. There was something in the boy's sincerity that moved him deeply, but at the same time, his rational mind tried to find logical explanations for the whole situation. "And how did you know it was here?" Robert asked. "I didn't, sir. I've been walking through several wealthy neighborhoods in the city for weeks. When I saw your house, something inside me told me I should try. And when the rain started," Nathan shrugged, "the gate was open." Mrs. Jenkins exchanged a meaningful look with Robert. She had worked in that house long enough to know the electronic gate never stayed open by accident. "Jenkins, could you check with Joe if he left the gate open today?" Robert asked, referring to the caretaker. "Of course, sir. But first, may I suggest we get Nathan some dry clothes? He might catch a cold." While Mrs. Jenkins went to fetch clothes, Robert was left alone with Nathan. The silence between them was heavy with unspoken questions. "Do you have any other relatives, Nathan?" "No, sir. It was just Grandma Mary. Now I'm staying at an orphanage downtown, but—" Nathan hesitated. "But what?" "I don't feel at home there. The other boys say I talk too much about my family, about the stories Grandma told. They think I make things up." Robert studied the boy's face carefully. There was a premature maturity there, the kind that comes from someone who has faced hardships too early in life. At the same time, there was a genuine innocence that couldn't be faked. "What kind of stories did your grandmother tell?" "She said our family had a special origin, that my great-grandmother was a very brave woman who raised 2 children alone, but had to make a very difficult decision to ensure at least one of them could have a better life." "A difficult decision?" Nathan nodded. "Grandma never told me the details, but she said sometimes love means letting go. That my great-grandmother left one of her children with a family who could give him opportunities she couldn't provide." The boy's words echoed in Robert's mind like a hammer. He had always known he was adopted, but his adoptive parents never went into details about his origins. They only said his birth mother was a young woman who couldn't raise him. Mrs. Jenkins returned with clean, dry clothes. Joe confirmed the gate was closed when he last checked at 2 o'clock. "And now it's 4 in the afternoon, she informed, handing the clothes to Nathan. "So how did he get in?" Robert murmured to himself. "Maybe it was fate," Nathan said simply, as if it were the most obvious explanation in the world. While Nathan changed in the bathroom, Robert paced back and forth in the living room, trying to process everything he had discovered in the last few hours. "Jenkins, did you really know my birth mother?" "Yes, sir. Grace used to come here sometimes when you were little. She worked as a seamstress in a factory in the garment district. She was a very beautiful and very sad woman." "Sad?" "She always talked about a daughter she had to leave with her grandmother when she was very young. Said it was the hardest decision of her life, but she had no choice. And then when you were born, she couldn't take care of you either. That's when your adoptive parents came along." Robert stopped pacing. "She visited because she wanted to see me." "Yes, sir. But your adoptive parents only allowed occasional visits. They thought it would confuse you. Grace respected that decision, but she always cried when she had to leave." At that moment, Nathan returned to the living room wearing a t-shirt and pants Mrs. Jenkins had found in the house's donation closet. The clothes were a little big for him, but they were clean and dry. "Much better," Mrs. Jenkins said, smiling at the boy. Robert watched Nathan in the new clothes and felt a strange sense of familiarity. It wasn't just the face. There was something about the boy's posture, the way he moved, that reminded him of himself. "Nathan, can you tell me more about your grandmother? What was she like?" "Grandma Mary was the bravest person I ever knew. She worked cleaning offices at night, so she could take me to school during the day. She always said education was the only thing no one could take from me." "And your mother? Do you remember her?" Nathan's face darkened. "A little. She was very young when I was born. Grandma said my mother tried to take care of me but couldn't, so Grandma raised me instead. My mother, she had trouble with drinking and ended up leaving when I was little. Robert felt a sharp pain in his chest. Nathan's story was so similar to his own, just seen from a different angle. And you never looked for other relatives before? Grandma always said I was too young to understand certain things. She promised that when I got older, she'd tell me the whole truth about our family, but Nathan swallowed hard. She passed before she could keep that promise. Mrs. Jenkins stepped closer and placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. I'm sure your grandmother is proud of you for coming here. She raised a very brave boy. What will you do now, Nathan? Robert asked. I don't know, sir. I hoped that when I found the person in the picture, everything would make more sense. That I'd understand better who I am. Robert felt something stir in his chest. For years he had lived a solitary life, focused only on business. He had never married, never had children. He had always convinced himself he didn't need family, but looking at Nathan, he realized he might have been wrong. Jenkins, can you prepare the guest room? Nathan will stay here tonight. Sir? Mrs. Jenkins looked at him in surprise. It's raining hard and it's already getting dark. It's not safe for a child to be out on the streets in these conditions. Nathan looked up at Robert with wide eyes. Are you sure, sir? I don't want to be a bother. You're not a bother, Nathan. In fact, Robert paused, choosing his words carefully. In fact, it's been a long time since this house has had such a special visitor. That evening during dinner, Robert watched Nathan closely. The boy had polite manners, despite his humble background. He expressed gratitude for every little thing, from the plate of food to the glass of juice. Nathan, tell me about school. Do you like studying? Yes, sir. Math is my favorite subject. Grandma always said I was really good with numbers. Robert nearly choked on his food. Math had been his passion as a child too, the very skill that helped him build his business empire. And what do you want to be when you grow up? Grandma said I could be anything I wanted, as long as I studied hard. Sometimes I think about being a businessman so I can help others who are struggling like I did. Nathan's words struck Robert like lightning. It was exactly what he himself had thought as a child, the desire to succeed and make a difference in people's lives. After dinner, Robert showed Nathan around parts of the house. The boy was in awe of the library, running his fingers along the spines of the books with reverence. Have you read all these books, sir? Many of them. Reading has always been a companion to me, Robert replied. Grandma loved reading too. She borrowed books from the neighborhood library and read to me before bed. That night, lying in his king-sized bed, Robert couldn't sleep. His mind was racing, processing everything that had happened. There was a real chance Nathan could be his nephew, the son of a sister he never knew existed. But even if it wasn't true, there was something about the boy that moved him deeply. Maybe it was the loneliness he recognized in Nathan's eyes, the same loneliness he had carried for years. The next morning, Robert woke to the sound of voices coming from the kitchen. When he went downstairs, he found Nathan helping Mrs. Jenkins prepare breakfast. Good morning, Mr. Mitchell, Nathan said, smiling. Mrs. Jenkins is teaching me how to make sugar bread. He's very clever and helpful, Mrs. Jenkins remarked. Picked up how to mix the dough in no time. Robert watched the scene with a smile he hadn't worn in years. There was a contagious joy in Nathan's presence that was transforming the atmosphere of the house. Nathan, after breakfast, I'd like to talk with you about some details of your story. Would that be all right? Of course, sir. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. After breakfast, Robert and Nathan sat in the study. Robert had spent the night thinking about how to approach the delicate situation. Nathan, I'd like to make some calls to verify a few details about your family. Would you mind? No, sir. In fact, I'd be really happy if you could help me learn more about my past. Robert picked up the phone and called his personal attorney, Edward Thompson. Edward, I need a favor. Can you run a discreet investigation on a family? The name is Williams, specifically a woman named Mary Williams who worked as a maid and recently passed away. After relaying the details, Robert hung up and turned back to Nathan. We should have more information in a few days. In the meantime, How would you feel about staying here with us? Are you sure, sir? I don't want to be a burden. Nathan, Robert interrupted gently, this house has been empty for years. Your presence here is bringing a joy I'd forgotten existed. Nathan smiled, and in that moment, Robert saw a flash of himself at 12 years old. The resemblance was undeniable. In the days that followed, a routine began to form. Nathan woke early and helped Mrs. Jenkins in the kitchen. After breakfast, Robert took him to explore different parts of New York, sharing stories about the city and his own formative years. Mr. Robert, can I ask you something? Nathan said during a walk through downtown. Of course. Did you never want to have a family? Children? The question caught Robert off guard. He stopped walking and looked at the boy. I always thought my work was enough, that I didn't need anything else. And now? Now? Robert hesitated. Now I'm realizing I might have been wrong. That afternoon, they visited the public library where Nathan's grandmother used to borrow books. The librarian, a kind woman named Mrs. Rose, immediately remembered Mary Parker. Oh yes, Mrs. Mary came here every week with her grandson. She was such a devoted woman. Always picked out educational books for him, Mrs. Rose said. When I heard she had passed, I was so sad. And Nathan, how is he doing? I'm okay, Mrs. Rose, Nathan replied. This is Mr. Robert. He's helping me. Mrs. Rose looked from Nathan to Robert and back again. My, you two have a family resemblance, you know, especially the eyes. Robert and Nathan exchanged a meaningful glance. On the way back home, Nathan was quieter than usual. What's on your mind? Robert asked. I was thinking about Grandma. She always said the right people come into our lives at the right time. Maybe she was right. That evening, Dr. Edward called with the first findings from the investigation. Robert, I've got some preliminary information. Mary Parker did exist and passed away 3 months ago. She worked as a housekeeper her whole life and raised her grandson alone after her daughter Emily Parker struggled with drug addiction. And the connection to my family? That'll be harder to verify. Adoption records from the 80s aren't very detailed, but I can keep digging. Please do. And, Edward, be discreet. I always am, Robert. After hanging up, Robert went upstairs to check on Nathan. He found the boy in the library flipping through a book on US history. Can't sleep. I was reading about New York. It's amazing how much the city has grown, isn't it? Robert sat beside Nathan. You know, when I was your age, I loved reading about history too. I always wondered what it would be like to live in different times. Do you think things happen for a reason? Nathan asked. What do you mean? I don't think it was a coincidence that I found your house. I think Grandma somehow led me here. Robert felt a lump in his throat. There was a wisdom in Nathan that constantly amazed him. Maybe you're right, Nathan. The next morning, Robert woke with a strange feeling. He had dreamed about his birth mother, Grace. In the dream, she was holding 2 babies and crying, forced to choose which one she could keep. At breakfast, Robert noticed Nathan arranged his food in a very specific way, first eating all the sweets, then the savory, and finally drinking the juice. It was exactly how Robert had done it as a child. Nathan, can I ask why you eat in that order? Nathan paused and looked at his plate. I don't know. I've always done it this way. Grandma said it was a strange habit, but everyone has their quirks. Interesting, Robert murmured. I've always eaten like that too. Mrs. Jenkins, who was pouring more coffee, stopped and looked at the two of them. Mr. Robert, do you remember when you were little and did exactly that? Your adoptive parents always thought it was funny. Robert and Nathan exchanged another glance. The similarities were piling up in a way that was hard to ignore. Later that day, Robert got an unexpected call. It was Richard Mitchell, his second cousin, and one of the few relatives he still kept in touch with. Robert, I heard you're hosting a child at your place, is it true? How did you find out? New York isn't that big, cuz. People talk. And given your position, you should be more careful about who you let into your home. Richard, that's none of your business. Actually, it is. As your only close relative, I worry about you. There are a lot of shady people out there, especially when it comes to someone with your fortune. What are you implying? I'm saying you should run a full background check on that boy before getting attached. It could be a setup. The conversation left Robert uneasy. He knew Richard had always been interested in his inheritance since he had no children and Robert was his wealthiest relative. But there was something in his cousin's tone that bothered him. That afternoon, during a walk in the park, Nathan seemed to notice Robert was preoccupied. "Mr. Robert, are you okay?" "I'm fine, Nathan. Just thinking about a few things. If it's about me staying at your place, I can go back to the orphanage. I don't want to cause trouble." Robert stopped walking and knelt in front of Nathan. "Nathan, look at me. You're not causing trouble. In fact, you're doing the exact opposite. You're bringing life to a house that's been dead for years. Then why do you seem sad? Because sometimes adults complicate simple things, but you don't need to worry about that." That night, Dr. Edward called again with more information. "Robert, I found something interesting. Mary Parker really did have a sister named Grace. They were separated as children after their parents passed away. Grace was adopted by a family, but lost touch with Mary." Robert's heart raced. "Does that mean—" "It means there's a real chance Nathan could be your nephew. But to be sure, we'd need a DNA test." "And how do I bring this up with Nathan?" "With care and honesty. He seems mature for his age." After hanging up, Robert went up to Nathan's room. He found the boy writing something in an old notebook. "What are you writing?" "I'm trying to write down everything I remember about Grandma. The stories she told me, the things she taught me. I'm afraid I'll forget." Robert sat on the edge of the bed. "Nathan, I need to talk to you about something important." The boy set the notebook aside and gave Robert his full attention. "I've been looking into your family and I found some information that might change everything." "What kind of information?" "There's a chance your grandma and my birth mother were sisters, which would mean we're actually related." Nathan was silent for a moment, processing it. "How can we be sure?" "There's a test that can prove if we're family. Would you like to take it?" "Yes," Nathan answered without hesitation. "I'd really like to know the truth. Even if the result is negative, even if we're not related." Nathan looked straight into Robert's eyes. "Mr. Robert, in these few days I've spent here, you've treated me better than a lot of people who call themselves family. If we're not related by blood, maybe we're related by heart." Nathan's answer touched Robert deeply. There was an emotional maturity in the boy that was rare even in adults. "So let's do the test. But no matter the result, I want you to know you'll always have a place here." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. The next day, Robert and Nathan went to a private clinic for the DNA test. The procedure was simple and quick, but the waiting period for the results would be a week. During that week, the household routine continued, but there was an underlying tension. Both Robert and Nathan were anxious about the outcome, though they tried not to show it. It was during that week that Richard showed up at the house unannounced. "Robert, we need to talk," said Richard, walking into the living room where Robert and Nathan were playing chess. "Richard, this is Nathan. Nathan, this is my cousin Richard." Richard barely greeted Nathan, keeping his focus on Robert. "Can I speak to you in private?" Robert hesitated, but eventually agreed. They went to the study, leaving Nathan in the living room. "Robert, have you lost your mind? You're letting a street kid live in your house without knowing anything about him." "I know enough." "Do you? And what exactly do you know? You can bet he's not making up this whole story to take advantage of you." "Richard, you're being paranoid." "Paranoid?" "Robert, you're one of the wealthiest men in New York. There are people who'd kill for a fraction of your fortune. And now a boy shows up out of nowhere with a convenient story about family." "That's enough, Richard. Nathan isn't like that." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I know people's character, and Nathan is a genuine kid." Richard changed tactics. "Robert, think about your reputation. What will people say when they find out you're raising a street kid? This could affect your business." "My business is just fine, thank you. And my personal life is no one's concern." When they returned to the living room, Nathan was still in the same spot, patiently waiting to resume their chess game. "Sorry for the delay, Nathan. Where were we?" "You had moved the knight," Nathan replied, but Robert noticed he seemed a little shaken. After Richard left, Robert sat beside Nathan. "Did you hear our conversation?" Nathan lowered his head. Not on purpose. But the voices were loud. "And what did you think of what you heard?" "I understand your cousin's concern. If I were him, I'd be worried too." "Nathan, look at me. Are you making any of this up? Is your story true?" Nathan met Robert's eyes with an honesty that was impossible to doubt. "Mr. Robert, I know my story sounds strange. I know it's hard to believe a boy just appeared out of nowhere with all these coincidences. But I swear on my grandmother's memory that every word I've said is true." Robert believed him. There was something in Nathan's voice, the way he spoke about his grandmother, that was pure truth. "I believe you, Nathan, and don't worry about my cousin. He can be overprotective sometimes." 2 days later, Dr. Edward called with unexpected news. "Robert, I found more information about the Williams family. It seems Mary Parker worked as a maid for several wealthy families in New York over the years, and one of those families was the Thompsons." "Thompson? As in Richard Thompson?" "No, Robert, as in Edward Thompson, my own father." Robert fell silent, processing the information. "That means... It means my father knew Mary Parker. And if she really was your biological mother's sister, then my father knew about this family. Why did he never mention it? That's a question I wish I could ask him. Unfortunately, he passed away 5 years ago. But can you check if he left any documentation?" "I'm already on it. I'll go through all his personal files." That evening, Robert told Nathan about the new discovery. "This means more people knew our story," Nathan said thoughtfully. "It seems so. And it makes me think our meeting might not have been as coincidental as we thought." "What do you mean? Perhaps your grandmother knew exactly where to find me. Maybe she left enough clues for you to get here." Nathan considered this. "Grandma was always very clever. She never said things outright, but always dropped hints so I'd figure them out myself." The next day, the DNA results arrived. Robert held the envelope in his hands, trembling slightly. "Do you want me to read it first?" Nathan offered. "No, let's read it together." Robert carefully opened the envelope and unfolded the paper. His eyes scanned the technical lines until they landed on the conclusion. "Probability of relation, 99.7%. The tested individuals are biologically uncle and nephew." Robert let the paper fall and looked at Nathan, who was reading over his shoulder. "It's true," Nathan whispered. "We're really family." Robert pulled Nathan into a tight hug, tears streaming down his face. After 45 years of life, he finally had a family. "Grandma was right," Nathan said, also crying. "She said I'd find my true home." Mrs. Jenkins, who had witnessed all the drama of the past few days, was also moved to tears. "Mr. Mitchell, I must say, I always felt there was something special between you two. There's a family energy there that's impossible to fake." But the joy of the discovery was interrupted by Richard's arrival later that afternoon. "Robert, I heard you took a DNA test. What was the result?" "Nathan is my nephew, Richard. We're family." Richard's face paled. "Robert, are you sure the test is reliable? There could have been a mistake." "There was no mistake, Richard. And frankly, I don't understand why this bothers you so much." "It doesn't bother me, cousin. I'm just worried about you. Now you'll have responsibilities you've never had before. And I'm more than happy to take them on." Nathan, who had been listening, stepped closer to Robert. "Uncle Robert, if Mr. Mitchell is worried about money, I can sign any paper saying I don't want anything. I just want to have a family." Nathan's innocent offer made Richard even more uncomfortable. "No, Nathan," Robert said firmly. "You're my family now, and as such, you have every right that comes with it." That night, after Richard left, Robert and Nathan talked about the future. "Nathan, now that we know we're family, we need to make some practical changes. First, you'll need a better school. Second, I'll start the legal guardianship process." "Uncle Robert, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you really want this? Or are you doing it just because we found out we're related?" Robert stopped what he was doing and looked seriously at Nathan. Nathan, even if the test had been negative, I'd still want you to stay. The biological connection just confirmed what my heart already knew. What was that? That you're the son I never knew I was looking for. In the following days, Robert began making the necessary changes to formalize Nathan's guardianship. He hired the best family law attorneys and started preparing all the required documentation. Meanwhile, Nathan was adjusting to his new life. Robert enrolled the boy in one of the best private schools in New York, but not without first discussing the transition with him. Nathan, you're going to attend a very different school from what you're used to. The children come from wealthy families, and they might not understand your background. Do you think they'll treat me badly? Some might try, but you're smart and strong, and whenever you need me, I'll be here to support you. On the first day of school, Robert Mitchell took Nathan there himself. Seeing the private school with its well-kept gardens and modern facilities, Nathan was impressed. It's so different from my old school, Nathan remarked. Different how? Back there we had to bring chairs from home because there weren't enough for everyone. Here, even the bathroom is nicer than the classroom was there. Nathan's observation made Robert reflect on the social divide that existed in the United States. His nephew had been born and raised in a world completely different from his own. Nathan, promise me one thing. Never forget where you came from. And always remember there are kids still going through the same struggles you faced. I promise, Uncle Robert. Grandma always said when we get opportunities, we should use them to help others. The first week of school was tough for Nathan. The other kids quickly noticed he was different. His clothes were new, but he didn't have the mannerisms of the elite. He didn't know expensive brands or talk about international trips. How was school today? Robert asked when Nathan got home. It was interesting, Nathan replied diplomatically. Interesting how? The boys asked if I was your adopted son. When I said I was your nephew, they wanted to know why I didn't talk like them. And what did you say? I said everyone speaks the way they learned from their family, that there's no right or wrong way to talk. Robert smiled. Nathan was showing impressive emotional maturity in handling the situation. And how did they react? Some laughed. Others got curious. There's one girl, Samantha, who said she thought it was cool that I had a different story. While Nathan adjusted to school, Robert faced his own challenges. News that he had adopted a boy from the streets was spreading in his social and business circles. During a business meeting, one of his partners made a comment that bothered him. Robert, I heard you're raising a child. That's admirable. But have you thought about how it might affect your professional image? What do you mean, Mark? Well, you've always been seen as the focused businessman, no family distractions. Some investors might question if you'll still have the same commitment to the business. Mark, my personal life doesn't interfere with my professional ability. If anything, it's motivating me even more. I hope you're right, just warning you about market perceptions. The conversation left Robert irritated. He was realizing society had prejudices deeper than he'd imagined. That evening at dinner, Nathan noticed Robert seemed troubled. Uncle Robert, if my being here is causing problems for you, I can... Nathan, Robert interrupted. Stop talking like that. You're not causing problems. You're helping me see problems that were already there, ones I ignored. What kind of problems? Problems like prejudice, superficiality, and lack of empathy. Things that always existed in my world, but I never paid attention to. And now you do? Now I do because I have someone important to protect. A week later, Dr. Edward Thompson called with information that would change everything again. Robert, I found something in my father's files that you need to know. What is it? There are documents proving my father knew Mary Parker was your biological mother's sister. More than that, he helped arrange your adoption. Robert fell silent. This means your adoption wasn't accidental. It was planned so you could stay with a family that could offer you opportunities while Mary raised her own daughter. Why did he never tell me this? There was a confidentiality agreement. It seems your birth mother asked for the information about Mary to be kept secret until you were an adult and capable of making your own decisions. And why was this never revealed to me when I became an adult? Because Mary had also asked to keep it a secret. She didn't want to interfere in your life after you became successful. So she knew who I was all these years? Yes, Robert. And she followed your career from afar. In fact, there's evidence that she intentionally directed Nathan to your home. Robert sank heavily into his chair. The whole story was turning out to be more complicated than he'd imagined. What do you mean, she directed Nathan? Mary Parker knew exactly where you lived. She spent the last months of her life teaching Nathan about the city, about the wealthy neighborhoods, specifically about your area. Nathan's arrival at your home was no coincidence. She planned all this. It seems so. She knew she was ill and wanted to make sure Nathan found family before she passed. That night, Robert told Nathan about Dr. Edwards' discoveries. Does that mean Grandma knew who you were all along? Nathan asked. It seems so. Nathan was silent for a long moment. Why did she never tell me? Maybe because she wanted you to find out naturally. Maybe because she believed things should happen at the right time. Grandma always talked about timing. She said everything in life has its right moment. And do you think this was the right moment? Nathan looked around the library where they were talking, then at Robert. Yes, Uncle Robert. I think it was exactly the right time. However, their peace was interrupted again by Richard, who appeared the next day with a graver expression than usual. Robert, we need to talk, and this time it's serious. What's happened now, Richard? I hired a private investigator to look into Nathan's story. You did what? It was necessary, Robert, and what he found will shock you. Robert felt his blood run cold. What did you find? Nathan isn't who you think he is. Richard, we did a DNA test. He's my nephew. Yes, he's your nephew, but there are other things about him you don't know. What things? Richard pulled a folder of documents from his bag. Nathan Parker isn't just an orphan boy who lived with his grandmother. He's one of the brightest kids to ever come through New York's public school system. By age 10, he'd skipped 2 grades. By 11, he was tutoring other students in advanced math. Robert stared at the folder, confused. And what's the problem with that? The problem is that level of intelligence, combined with his family history, makes Nathan far more valuable than you realize. There are people interested in him. What kind of people? People who specialize in identifying exceptional talents and exploiting them. People who might try to kidnap Nathan or blackmail you. A chill ran down Robert's spine. Are you saying Nathan is in danger? I'm saying both of you are in danger, and you need to take precautions immediately. That night, Robert talked to Nathan about Richard's findings. Nathan, you never told me you were so advanced in school. Nathan shrugged. I didn't think it mattered. Grandma always said intelligence is like having blue eyes. It's just a trait you're born with. What matters is how you use it. But you skipped grades, tutored other kids. It was just because I learned fast. He didn't like doing the same things over once he'd already understood them. Robert realized Nathan truly didn't see his intelligence as anything exceptional. To him, it was just natural. Nathan, from now on, we'll need to take some extra precautions. I'm going to hire discreet security for when you're at school. Why? Did something happen? Robert explained Richard's concerns about people who might take an interest in Nathan because of his exceptional intelligence. Uncle Robert, do you think Grandma knew about this too? What do you mean? She always taught me to be discreet about my grades at school, told me not to draw unnecessary attention. At the time, I thought it was just modesty, but now you think she was protecting you? Yes, Grandma was very smart. She might have realized being too different could be dangerous. The conversation was interrupted by Mrs. Jenkins, who brought in a tray with tea. Excuse me, Mr. Mitchell. There's a man at the door asking for Nathan. Says he's from the orphanage where he stayed. Robert and Nathan exchanged a worried glance. I'll talk to him, said Robert. Nathan, you stay here. No, Uncle Robert. If it's about me, I want to hear. They went downstairs together and found a middle-aged man at the door, dressed in simple but clean clothes. Good evening. My name is Anthony Johnson. I'm the coordinator of the municipal orphanage where Nathan stayed. I came to check on how he's doing. He's doing very well, thank you, Robert replied. I see. It's just that we've received some calls asking about Nathan. People claiming to be researchers interested in his academic potential. Robert felt an alarm go off in his mind. What kind of researchers? They didn't identify themselves clearly, but they offered money for information about Nathan. Obviously, we didn't provide anything, but I thought you should know. You did the right thing by telling us, said Robert. Has anything else unusual happened? Well, there were also some people asking about Nathan's family. They wanted details about his grandmother, about where she worked. Nathan stepped forward. Mr. Johnson, did those people say what they wanted with that information? No, Nathan, but they didn't give me a good feeling. That's why I decided to come warn you in person. After Anthony left, Robert immediately called the security company that protected his businesses. I need residential security right away and discreet protection for a child. Has something specific happened, Mr. Mitchell? Potential threats. I need you to start tonight. That night, Robert couldn't sleep. He realized life had become much more complicated since Nathan arrived, but at the same time, he couldn't imagine what it would be like without the boy. In the morning, Nathan came down for breakfast earlier than usual. Good morning, Uncle Robert. Did you sleep well? Not really, and you? I was thinking about last night, about those people asking about me. And what did you think? I think Grandma knew this could happen. That's why she waited so long to teach me about you. Why do you say that? Because Grandma always said knowledge is power, but power can be dangerous if used at the wrong time or by the wrong people. Nathan's maturity continued to impress Robert. At 12 years old, the boy had an understanding of the world that many adults lacked. Nathan, starting today, you'll have to follow some safety rules. No leaving the house without telling someone. No talking to strangers, always having someone nearby at school. I understand, Uncle Robert. Grandma already taught me some of those things. What do you mean? She always told me not to tell strangers where I lived, not to talk about my family with just anyone, to always let someone know where I was going. She was really preparing you for all this, wasn't she? I think so. Grandma was always very careful. Later that day, Dr. Edward called with more alarming discoveries. Robert, I found something in the archives that will interest you. There are records showing someone was investigating your family about 6 months ago. Who? I couldn't identify them, but the inquiries started shortly after Mary Parker was diagnosed with the illness that took her. Does that mean someone knew she was sick and that Nathan would be left alone? It seems so. And this person was specifically interested in the connection between Mary and you. Edward, this is scaring me. What kind of person would conduct that kind of investigation? Someone with considerable resources and a lot of interest in Nathan, or in you, or both. Robert hung up the phone, feeling pulled into a far more dangerous situation than he had imagined. That afternoon, while Nathan was doing homework in the library, Robert joined him. Nathan, can I ask you something personal? Of course, Uncle Robert. Did your grandmother leave you anything else besides the photo? Nathan stopped writing and looked at Robert. Actually, yes. She gave me a letter I was only supposed to open if I found the man in the photo. Robert's heart raced. And you haven't opened it yet? No. I was waiting to be sure you were really the right person. And now you're sure? Yes, especially after the DNA test. Nathan stood and went to his room, returning a few minutes later with a yellowed envelope. Grandma made me promise I'd only open this letter in front of you. Robert took the envelope with trembling hands. The name Nathan was written on the front in the careful handwriting of an elderly person. Do you want me to read it aloud? Yes, please. Robert carefully opened the envelope and unfolded the letter. My dearest Nathan, if you're reading this letter, it means you've found your Uncle Robert and that he has welcomed you into his life. I am so happy, wherever I am now. There are things you need to know. Things I couldn't tell you while I was alive because the time wasn't right. Your Uncle Robert is much more than just family. He is a good man who spent his whole life not knowing he had relatives. Your mother, Grace, my sister, always regretted having to let him be adopted, but she did it out of love. She wanted him to have opportunities she couldn't provide. Nathan, you are special in a way you don't yet fully understand. Your intelligence is a gift, but it can also be a burden. There are people in this world who take advantage of children like you. That's why I always trusted only family. Your Uncle Robert will protect you, but you must also protect yourself. Always be humble about your abilities. Don't draw unnecessary attention. And always remember that true family is whoever stands by you in hard times. There's one more thing you both need to know. Hidden in the wall of my old bedroom, behind the painting of St. Anne, is an envelope with important documents. These papers explain things about our family that even I didn't fully understand, but they may be important in the future. Nathan, you were always my joy. Know that everything I did was to prepare you for this moment. And Robert, if you're reading this, know that your sister Grace always spoke of you with pride. She knew you would become a special man. Take care of each other. You are all that remains of our family, but you are enough to keep the love that binds us alive. With all my love, Grandma Mary. Robert finished reading the letter with tears in his eyes. Nathan was silently crying. She knew this would happen, said Nathan. She planned everything. And she mentioned documents hidden in her house. The house was demolished 2 months ago, Uncle Robert. It was in a slum that was cleared for a building construction. Robert felt a weight in his stomach. Are you sure? Yes. I went there a few weeks after Grandma passed. Everything was torn down. Nathan, do you remember seeing this painting of St. Anne she mentioned? Yes. Grandma always lit a candle for St. Anne every Friday. The painting hung on the wall next to her bed. And do you remember if she ever moved it around? Nathan thought for a moment. Actually, yes. Sometimes I'd see her take the painting off the wall and fiddle with something behind it. She always said she was cleaning, but now that I think about it, she did that even when she wasn't cleaning the rest of the house. Nathan, is there any chance you saved anything from the house before the demolition? I tried to save what I could. Most things were lost, but I managed to grab some photos, a few books, and... Nathan stopped, his eyes wide. What? The painting of St. Anne? I took it because it was Grandma's most precious item. It's in my room, in the backpack I brought from the orphanage. Robert and Nathan rushed to the room. Nathan opened the old backpack and carefully pulled out a small, simple painting of St. Anne. Let's see what's behind it, said Robert. They turned the painting over and immediately saw an envelope taped to the back. Robert carefully peeled off the envelope and opened it. Inside were several old documents and a small key. What is this? Asked Nathan. Robert examined the papers. There were birth certificates, work documents for Mary Parker, and something that made his heart stop. A bank document with a safe deposit box number. Nathan, your grandmother had a safe deposit box. Really? But Grandma always said we didn't have any money. Maybe it wasn't about money. Maybe it was about other important documents. Robert looked more closely at the bank document. It was from a small branch in downtown New York, and the box was registered under Mary Parker and Grace Mitchell. Nathan, this safe deposit box is under your grandmother's name and my birth mother's. They were partners in this box. Does that mean your mother left something for us? There's only one way to find out. The next day, Robert and Nathan went to the bank branch. Thanks to the legal paperwork Robert had prepared for Nathan's guardianship, and with the documents found behind the painting, they were granted access to the box. Inside the box was a small metal case. Robert opened it carefully, revealing more old photos, some simple jewelry, and a sealed letter addressed to my children, Robert and Nathan. She knew my name? Asked Nathan, astonished. It seems your grandmother and my mother stayed in touch longer than we thought. Robert opened the letter with trembling hands. Dear Robert and Nathan, if you're reading this letter, it means you found each other and that Mary kept our promise. Robert, my beloved son, giving you up for adoption was the hardest decision of my life, but I knew you needed opportunities I couldn't provide. I followed your life from afar and always took pride in the man you became. Nathan, my grandson I never met, your grandmother told me so much about you over the years. I know you're smart, kind and brave, just like our whole family. The reason Mary and I created this safe deposit box was to ensure that if anything happened to us, you'd have access to the full truth about our family. Our family has a history of resilience. Our grandparents came to New York at the turn of the century, fleeing the Dust Bowl. They worked hard and managed to build a decent life here, but life kept pulling our family apart over the years. When I was young, I had to make the difficult decision to give Robert up for adoption because I couldn't afford to raise him. Later, Mary went through the same situation with Emily, her daughter, and Nathan's mother. But we always held on to the hope that one day our family would be reunited. Robert, inside this box's jewelry is our grandmother's wedding ring. It's a simple piece, but it holds great sentimental value. I want you to have it as a reminder of where you came from. Nathan, the medal here belonged to our grandfather. He used to say it brought luck and protection. Your grandmother Mary always wanted you to have it when you were older. But the most important things in this box aren't the objects. They're the documents that prove our family always fought to stay together, even when circumstances pulled us apart. Take care of each other. You two are all that remains of our love, but you're enough to keep our family alive. With all my eternal love, Grace. Robert and Nathan stayed silent for a long moment after reading the letter. Both were crying. Uncle Robert, Nathan finally said. Now I understand why Grandma always talked about family. She knew we'd find each other one day. And now that we have, we'll honor the sacrifice they made. They took the jewelry and documents, locked the safe, and headed home. But when they arrived, they found Richard waiting for them, and he wasn't alone. With him were two men in suits Robert didn't recognize. Robert, these are Mr. Chen and Mr. Smith. They represent an international organization for gifted children's education. Robert immediately went on alert. What do you want? Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Chen said, we've learned you're caring for a child with exceptional intellectual abilities. Our organization specializes in identifying and nurturing talents like Nathan's. And what exactly are you proposing? We offer elite international education. Nathan would be sent to one of our institutions in Switzerland, where he'd receive the finest education in the world. Nathan hid behind Robert. What if I'm not interested? Robert asked. Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Smith said, children like Nathan are rare resources. It would be a waste not to properly develop his potential. Nathan isn't a resource. He's my nephew, and he's staying with me. We understand your emotional stance, Mr. Chen said, but we must consider the greater good. Nathan could contribute significantly to global scientific advancement. The answer is no, Robert said firmly. The two men exchanged a glance. Mr. Mitchell, we hope you'll reconsider. Our offer remains open, but not indefinitely. After they left, Robert turned to Richard. How did they find out about Nathan? Robert, you have to understand. Nathan is a special child. There are people in the world dedicated to finding talents like his, and you thought you had the right to talk to them without consulting me. I was thinking about Nathan's future, and yours too. My future? Robert, raising a gifted child isn't easy. There are responsibilities you can't imagine. Maybe it's better to let professionals handle it. Richard, get out of my house, now. Robert, you're making a mistake. The only mistake I made was trusting you. After Richard left, Robert knelt in front of Nathan. Nathan, you heard the conversation. What do you think? Uncle Robert, Grandma always told me family takes care of family. I don't want to go anywhere. I want to stay with you. Then that's what we'll do. But now we know there are people interested in you. We'll have to be more careful. That night, Robert called the best family lawyer he knew. Doctor, Henry, I need to speed up Nathan's custody process. I need maximum legal protection. Did something specific happen? There are people trying to take Nathan away from me, people with considerable resources. I understand. I'll prepare all the necessary documentation. And Robert, I suggest you formalize a will making it clear that Nathan is your heir. That will make it harder for anyone to challenge custody. Do it immediately. In the following days, Robert's home became a fortress. He hired 24-hour security and installed advanced monitoring systems. Nathan continued going to school, but always with discreet protection. A week later, Mrs. Jenkins brought troubling news. Mr. Mitchell, the doorman from the neighboring building, said there are people asking questions about you. They want to know Nathan's schedule, the household routine. What kind of people? Well-dressed people with expensive cars, but the doorman thought it was odd because they offered money for the information. Robert realized the situation was escalating. he needed to take more drastic measures. "Mrs. Jenkins, pack our bags. We're going away for a few weeks." "Where to, sir?" "Somewhere Nathan can stay safe while I handle this." Robert decided to take Nathan to a rural property he owned outside New York. It was an isolated place where it would be hard for anyone to find them. "Uncle Robert, why do we have to hide?" Nathan asked during the trip. "Because sometimes when you're special, there are people who want to use that for their own interests." "Do you think those people are dangerous?" "I don't know, Nathan, but I won't take any risks with your safety." The rural property was a perfect refuge. There was a comfortable house, plenty of space for Nathan to play and explore, and most importantly, total privacy. In the first few days, Nathan adjusted well to country life. He helped with small chores, explored nature, and kept up with his studies using materials Robert had brought. "You know, Uncle Robert, I've never seen so many stars," Nathan said one night as they sat on the porch looking at the sky. "It's different from the city, isn't it?" "Yeah. Grandma always said in the countryside you can see the important things more clearly." "What do you think she meant by that?" "I think she meant not letting life's distractions keep us from seeing what really matters." "And what matters most to you, Nathan?" "Family, and having a place where I can be myself without worrying about being too different." Nathan's answer deeply moved Robert. He realized he was giving the boy exactly what he himself had needed as a child: unconditional acceptance. But their peace was interrupted a week later when Dr. Edward called with urgent news. "Robert, where are you? I tried calling your house, and Mrs. Jenkins said you'd gone away." "We're somewhere safe." "What happened?" "There was a break-in at your home in New York." Robert felt his blood run cold. "A break-in?" "Someone got in overnight. They didn't take anything valuable, but they thoroughly searched Nathan's room and your office." "The security system didn't catch it?" "It was disabled professionally. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing." "Edward, this confirms we're dealing with very dangerous people." "Robert, I suggest you contact the authorities." "And say what? That people are interested in my gifted nephew? They'll think I'm being paranoid." "Then what will you do?" "I'll keep Nathan away from New York until we find a permanent solution." After hanging up, Robert looked at Nathan, who was playing with a complicated puzzle he'd solved in record time. "Nathan, we need to talk." Robert told him about the break-in, trying not to scare the boy too much. "Does that mean we can't go home?" asked Nathan. "Not for now. At least not until we're sure it's safe." "Uncle Robert, can I ask you something?" "Always. Do you regret finding me? Your life was much simpler before I came along." The question broke Robert's heart. "Nathan, look at me. I will never, ever regret having you in my life. You gave meaning to an existence that felt empty. These problems we're facing aren't your fault. But if I weren't different..." "Nathan, being different isn't a bad thing. It's a gift. The problem is the people who want to use your gift for their own purposes. What if they don't give up? Then we'll find a way to make them." That night, Robert lay awake thinking of solutions. He couldn't run forever, and Nathan deserved a normal life. The next morning he had an idea. "Nathan, what if we made you seem less interesting to these people?" "How?" "What if you could still be smart, but in a way that doesn't draw so much attention?" Nathan thought for a moment. "You mean pretend I'm not as smart as I really am?" "Not pretend, just be more discreet about your abilities. Grandma actually taught me that. She said intelligence is like a powerful tool. You only show it when necessary." "Exactly. That way you can have a normal life while still reaching your potential." "I like that idea, Uncle Robert. I never liked being the center of attention anyway." They spent the next few days working on ways for Nathan to keep a low profile. He'd still excel in school, but less obviously. Instead of finishing tests in 5 minutes, he'd take his time. Instead of correcting teachers, he'd ask questions that showed curiosity without revealing he already knew the answers. 2 weeks later, Dr. Edward called with better news. "Robert, things in New York seem to have settled down. There haven't been any more suspicious activities around your home." "Does that mean they've given up?" Maybe. Or maybe they're waiting for you to return. Edward, I need a permanent solution. Nathan can't live in hiding forever. Actually, I have a suggestion. What if you moved to another country temporarily, somewhere Nathan could continue his studies in peace? Are you suggesting I abandon my business in the United States? Not abandon. Delegate, you have capable managers, and with today's technology, you can oversee everything remotely. Robert considered it. It wasn't ideal, but it might be the safest option. Where do you suggest we go? The United Kingdom would be a good choice. They speak English, have excellent schools, and it's a place where you could live quietly without drawing attention. That night, Robert talked to Nathan about the possibility of moving abroad temporarily. It'd be like an adventure, Nathan said. Grandma always talked about how interesting it would be to see new places. You wouldn't mind leaving the United States? Uncle Robert, the United States will always be home, but home is where family is. As long as I'm with you, we're home anywhere. Nathan's emotional maturity kept surprising Robert. At 12, the boy understood life in a way many adults didn't. Then that's what we'll do. I'll start arranging our temporary move to the United Kingdom. But before they could put the plan into action, they had an unexpected visitor at the farmhouse. It was Richard, but this time he was alone, and he looked nervous. Robert, we need to talk. Urgently. How did you find out where we were? It wasn't hard. This property is under your name. What do you want, Richard? I came to warn you. Those people who were interested in Nathan, they aren't who they claim to be. Robert felt a chill down his spine. What do you mean? They don't represent any legitimate educational organization. They're traffickers. Traffickers of what? Gifted children. They sell these kids to wealthy people who want private geniuses working for them. Robert felt the world spin around him. And you knew this when you brought them to my house? No, I swear I didn't know. They approached me saying they represented a reputable educational group. I only found out the truth later. How did you find out? I did my own investigation after you kicked me out. And what I found terrified me, Robert. These people are dangerous. They have unlimited resources and international connections. Nathan, who had been listening, stepped closer to Robert. Uncle Robert, does that mean they wanted to sell me? Nathan, Richard spoke directly to the boy. I'm so sorry. I didn't know I was putting you in danger. I thought I was helping. And now, Robert asked, what will they do when they find out we're no longer in New York? They'll keep looking. These people don't give up easily. Then I need to take stronger measures. That night, Robert called contacts he had in the federal government. As an influential businessman, he had access to people in high positions. Secretary Williams, it's Robert Mitchell. I need an urgent favor regarding a child's safety. What's this about, Robert? Robert explained the situation, leaving out some details, but making it clear there was a real threat against Nathan. This is serious, Robert. I'll put you in touch with federal security. They know how to handle these situations. The next day, federal agents arrived at the rural property. They heard the whole story and confirmed the organization pursuing Nathan was known to international authorities. Mr. Mitchell, the lead agent said, this group operates in multiple countries. They specialize in identifying children with exceptional abilities and abducting them to sell on the black market. What can you do? We'll coordinate with international police to dismantle their operation in the United States, but it'll take time. And in the meantime, you'll need to remain under federal protection until the operation is complete. Nathan listened quietly. When the agents left, he approached Robert. Uncle Robert, I'm so sorry for bringing all this trouble into your life. Nathan, how many times do I have to say you didn't bring trouble? You brought joy. These problems exist because there are bad people in the world, not because you're special. But if I were just a normal kid, if you were a normal kid, I wouldn't be lucky enough to have such an amazing nephew. 2 months later, federal agents reported the international operation had succeeded. The group after Nathan had been dismantled, and its leaders were arrested. Does that mean we can go back to New York? Nathan asked. Yes, Nathan. We can go home. Returning to New York was emotional. Mrs. Jenkins welcomed them with tears of joy, and the house had never felt more welcoming. "How does it feel to be back?" Robert asked Nathan. "I feel at peace, Uncle Robert. For the first time since Grandma passed, I feel truly safe." In the following months, their lives settled into a new normal. Nathan returned to school where he applied the strategies they'd developed to keep a low profile. He continued to excel academically, but more discreetly. Robert, on the other hand, discovered that being a father, or rather an uncle, had changed his priorities. He still ran his businesses competently, but now he had a greater motivation: to give Nathan the best life possible. One afternoon, 6 months after their return, Nathan asked a question that took Robert by surprise. "Uncle Robert, have you ever thought about having more kids?" "Why do you ask?" "Because I think you'd be an amazing father. And I'd like to have a brother or sister." The question made Robert reflect on his love life, something he had completely neglected in recent years. "Nathan, to have more children, I'd need to find someone special to marry." "And why don't you look?" "Because I was too focused on work. But now I can consider that possibility." A few months later, Robert met Sarah Johnson, a literature teacher who had been giving Nathan private lessons. She was an intelligent, warm-hearted woman who was immediately charmed by Nathan's maturity and kindness. "She likes me," Nathan told Robert after one of the lessons. "How do you know?" "She treats me like I matter, not like I'm a stranger. And she looks at you in a special way." "What special way?" "The same way Grandma used to look at Grandpa in old pictures, like you're the most interesting person in the world." Robert smiled. Nathan was becoming an excellent observer of human dynamics. A year later, Robert and Sarah married in a small, intimate ceremony. Nathan was the ring bearer, and during the ceremony he held the rings with the utmost pride. "Now we're a complete family," Nathan told Robert afterward. "We've always been a complete family, Nathan. Now we're just a bigger one." 2 years later, Sarah gave birth to a baby girl, whom they named Mary, in honor of Nathan's grandmother. Nathan became the most protective and loving brother imaginable. "Uncle Robert," Nathan said, cradling his newborn sister. "Grandma Mary would be so happy to know her great-granddaughter is also named Mary. I'm sure she is happy, wherever she is." Years passed, and Nathan grew into a brilliant yet well-balanced young man. He graduated high school at 16 with top marks, but chose not to skip more grades, preferring a more normal school experience. When it came time to choose a university, Nathan surprised everyone. "I want to study education," he announced. "Education?" Robert asked. "With your intelligence, you could study anything. Medicine, engineering, physics. Uncle Robert, I've learned that intelligence without purpose is useless. I want to use mine to help other kids who've been through what I have." "How so?" "I want to work with gifted children from poor families. I want to help them develop their potential without losing their humanity." Robert felt immense pride in the man Nathan had become. At 18, he had a clarity of purpose many adults never achieve. "And do you know where you want to study?" "At Columbia University, right here in New York. I don't want to be far from family." Nathan graduated with a degree in education, specializing in gifted education. During university, he developed innovative methods to identify and nurture talent in children from underprivileged communities. At 22, he founded a non-profit called the Knowledge Family Foundation, which provided free supplemental education for intellectually advanced children from low-income families. "Nathan," Robert said at the non-profit's inauguration, "your grandmother and great-grandmother would be so proud to see the man you've become." "Uncle Robert, none of this would have been possible if you hadn't given me a family. Everything I've achieved is because I had love and stability." The inauguration ceremony was so moving. Mrs. Jenkins, now retired but still very much present in the family's life, Sarah Johnson, little Mary, now 5 years old and already showing signs of advanced intelligence, and dozens of others whose lives had been touched by the family were all there. During his speech, Nathan said something that deeply moved everyone. "Family isn't just about blood. Family is about people who choose to love each other unconditionally. Family is about creating a space where everyone can be their true selves. Family is about turning pain into purpose and loneliness into connection." In the years that followed, Nathan's NGO helped hundreds of children. Many earned scholarships to prestigious universities, others became young inventors, and all of them learned that intelligence combined with love and purpose can change the world. Robert, now in his 50s, had become a completely different person. The lonely, work-focused businessman had transformed into a devoted family man, a mentor to young talents, and an active advocate for underprivileged children's education. "You know, Nathan," Robert said one afternoon as they watched little Mary playing in the garden, "sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if you hadn't shown up that rainy afternoon." "And what answer do you find?" "That I would have kept existing, but not living. You taught me the difference between having success and having meaning, and you taught me that love has no limits when it's real." At that moment, little Mary ran up to them, holding a drawing she had made. "Daddy, Nathan, look what I drew." It was a simple drawing of a house with several people in front: Robert, Sarah Johnson, Nathan, herself, and two figures she had drawn as angels in the sky. "Who are the angels, Mary?" Nathan asked. "They're Grandma Mary and Grandma Grace. Mommy told me they're watching over our family from heaven." Robert and Nathan exchanged an emotional glance. The child's wisdom had perfectly captured the essence of their story. Years later, when Nathan married Emma, an educator he met at a teaching conference, Robert gave a speech that moved everyone. "Nathan, when you ran into my house 15 years ago, you were just escaping the rain. But really, you were running toward your destiny, and in the process, you gave me mine. You taught me that family is the most important choice we make in life, and today, as you start your own family, I know the values we learned together, love, dedication, purpose, and connection, will keep being passed on." Robert and Nathan's story became legendary in New York, not because of wealth or business success, but because of the human transformation it represented. Businessmen began seeking Robert's advice, not just about work, but about life and purpose. Nathan's NGO kept growing and eventually expanded to other cities. Robert became its main donor, but Nathan always made sure the organization stayed independent and true to its original mission. By the time little Mary turned 10 and showed she had inherited the family's exceptional intelligence, Nathan and Robert already knew exactly how to guide her. They had learned that talent without love and guidance can be a burden, but talent nurtured by a strong family can change the world. "Uncle Nathan," Mary said one day, "why is our family so different from others?" "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "Other families have known each other since they were born. Our family found each other when we were already older." Nathan smiled, remembering an answer his grandmother Mary had given to a similar question years before. "Mary, the best families aren't the ones that are born ready. They're the ones built with love, patience, and dedication. Our family is special because every person chose to be here. And will you always choose to stay together?" "Always," Robert and Nathan answered in unison. The end of the story. And now, dear listener, what did you think of this story about how fate can transform lives through the power of family? Do you believe Robert made the right decisions in welcoming Nathan? Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. If you have a special family story of your own to share, we'd love to hear it. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like this video, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories like this one.